Most religions discuss sin. They see it as evil or the polar opposite to good, or chaos as the polar opposite to order. They make sure to lay out sins that they are commanded to avoid, which people will either avoid to the bare minimum to feel self-righteous without understanding why they are following it, or the sin will be defined as something that was a real problem at the time and people will still follow it blindly or take it to a far extreme, doing just as much harm to themselves and others. Religion will not discuss where sin comes from other than a supernatural reason. Demons or a central embodiment of evil is trying to lure them into sinning. However, philosophers have argued over the causes of sin as well. Most of them were able to grasp one of the aspects and focus solely on that aspect without realizing the full spectrum. Sin was also not well defined by religion, usually saying it was something the gods forbade, caused them sadness, or opened themselves up to supernatural attack or deific vengeance. Sin should be defined as any action or mindset that is destructive to oneself or others. The three causes of sin are ignorance, laziness, and addiction. These are why sin is prevalent. Look at any sin made and you will find these three at the core of the problem. The problem is they feed on each other. Many are addicted to laziness, or they're ignorant of their laziness in that area. Many are ignorant of their addiction, or they know about it and are too lazy to struggle with their own addictions. Many are too lazy to repair their own ignorance, or are addicted to their ignorance because, after all, ignorance is bliss. If we could magically fix one of these three elements, sin would be decreased by only a little bit, as the other two would rebel against the change. If we could fix two of the elements, we could eliminate about 1/2 of the negative actions. Even if we were able to eliminate all three, there would still be psychological anomalies that would require constant vigilance and maintenance to prevent all of the work one did to eliminate these elements from returning. However, understanding these elements, one can eliminate a majority of damaging actions to one's own life. Ignorance. Socrates was a Greek philosopher and an original thinker of his time. He created a concept called the dialectic, which involves bouncing an idea back and forth in a debate to find a new and different way of looking at an idea. He also helped found science in a roundabout way, questioning what was matter and substance. However, his views on sin were a bit naive, though partially true. He believed that the reason people had destructive behaviors was because they were unaware that it was destructive, and if they could truly grasp how destructive their behavior was, they would stop it. At the time, he did not take into account the laziness of man, even if they knew, and the concept of addiction that was not understood. He also seemed to fail to understand that people did not know what they did not know. His way to eliminate destructive behavior was to found schools, and his student Plato dreamed of the concept of a philosopher king, who would lead his people from ignorance and self-destruction. For what he had to work with, it was a wonderful, though partial, philosophy. Socrates, without understanding the sociology and psychology, ended up poisoning himself because of his naivety, and he believed that the government was all that mattered in making people less ignorant, and thought he was helping in creating the greater good. Laziness. Kung Fu, more commonly known as Confucius, was a Chinese philosopher near the time of Socrates. He believed that a love of knowledge was required to eliminate negative elements, but not all there was to it. He in fact refused to teach people who were not eager to learn. In fact, he believed destructive elements existed because society was not structured in a way that made it easier to do good. He spent his life attempting to gain political power or influence so that he could change every aspect of society so that people would be more likely to do good. Confucius believed that if he could change society and culture, he would exploit laziness by making it easier to do good. A love of learning would be naturally cultivated, eliminating damaging behavior. However, he still did not understand the last element, addiction. As I've discussed in my past videos, laziness is also evolved into us. In nature, the balance between conserving energy and using energy is a tricky game. Therefore, it is a risk to try and learn something different that could cost you your life. Therefore, laziness and fear of change is a built-in trait to ensure that we don't do more than we absolutely have to pass on our genes. This has been shown to be more prevalent when people are more destitute. Confucius was correct when understanding that bad law and social norms could cause bad behavior, but he was also extremely heavy-handed in his views and had no understanding of psychology, which is why a lot of Chinese governments for the longest time were hung up on things like filial piety and honor and not on actually doing things to make their country a better place.